The notification from my banking app lit up my phone at exactly 2:17 p.m. on a Tuesday. I remember the time precisely because I was in the middle of a quarterly financial review meeting when my world started to crack. My name is Evie, and I used to think I had my life perfectly arranged, like the spreadsheets I spend my days analyzing. The message showed a withdrawal of $47,000 from our joint savings account. My stomach dropped as I stared at the screen, the numbers burning into my retinas while my colleague's voice faded into white noise. Evie? The Thompson account projections? I snapped my head up, meeting my supervisor's questioning gaze. Sorry, I just need to. Excuse me for a moment. I grabbed my phone and practically ran to the bathroom, my heels clicking against the marble floor in an uneven rhythm. With trembling fingers, I called Travis. It rang 6 times before going to voicemail. Of course. My husband's phone was perpetually set to silent when he was in the zone with his photography. I tried again. And again. Finally, on the 4th attempt, "Hey babe, what's up? I'm kind of in the middle of a shoot. Travis, why is there a $47,000 withdrawal from our account?" My voice echoed off the bathroom tiles, and I lowered it to a harsh whisper. Please tell me this is some kind of mistake. There was a pause, too long to be innocent. Oh, that. Yeah, I was going to tell you about it tonight. It's for some new equipment I need for this huge corporate gig I landed. The client's paying double my usual rate, so we'll have it back in no time. The explanation seemed reasonable enough, but something in his tone made my skin prickle. After 8 years of marriage, I knew when Travis was feeding me half-truths. What equipment costs exactly $47,000? I pressed. Listen, I can't really talk right now. The client's waiting. We'll discuss it over dinner, okay? Love you. He hung up before I could respond. I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, noting how the fluorescent lights made me look as pale as I felt. Something wasn't adding up, and if there's one thing I can't stand, it's numbers that don't balance. Back at my desk, I couldn't focus on work. Instead of analyzing market trends, I found myself logging into our online banking portal. The withdrawal had been made in cash, at a branch across town. Travis hadn't used his card for any major photography equipment purchases recently. In fact, looking at his transaction history, there was a pattern of increasingly large withdrawals over the past few months that I'd somehow missed. When I got home that evening, the house was dark. A text from Travis said he'd be late, the shoot was running over. I sat in our home office, the blue light from his laptop casting shadows on the wall. He always left it logged in, trusting me completely. Or maybe he was just careless. I hesitated only a moment before opening his email. It felt wrong, invasive, but the nagging feeling in my gut wouldn't let go. That's when I found the folder labeled Investment Opportunities. Inside were hundreds of emails from online gambling sites, payment confirmations, and desperate messages to someone named Victor about making things right. My phone buzzed with another text from Travis, "Grabbed dinner with the client. Don't wait up. Tomorrow night, I promise we'll talk." I closed the laptop and walked to our bedroom, where I opened his side of the closet. Behind his carefully arranged camera equipment and the vintage leather jacket I'd given him for his birthday, I found a stack of papers stuffed into an old shoebox. Bank statements, loan applications, and at the bottom, a letter from a collection agency demanding immediate payment of $86,000. The Travis I thought I knew would never hide something like this. But then again, maybe I never really knew Travis at all. And that realization scared me more than any number on those statements. I barely slept that night, watching Travis's side of the bed remain empty until dawn. When he finally stumbled in around 6 a.m., I pretended to be asleep, studying him through barely open eyes as he kicked off his shoes and collapsed fully clothed onto the mattress. My brother Sam's law office was only a 10-minute walk from my workplace, but it felt like miles that morning. Each step was heavy with the weight of what I'd discovered. When I arrived, his secretary waved me straight through. Being the boss's sister had its perks. "You look like hell," Sam said, not looking up from his computer. When I didn't respond with our usual banter, he finally raised his eyes. "Evie?" I dropped the stack of papers I'd found in Travis's closet onto his desk. "I need your help." Sam picked up the collection notice, his expression darkening as he read. "Jesus Christ. 86,000? Plus the 47 from your savings?" He shuffled through the papers, his lawyer face settling in. "How long has this been going on?" "I don't know." My voice cracked. I thought I knew everything about our finances. "I'm supposed to be good at this, Sam. It's literally my job. This isn't your fault." Sam leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his graying hair. "Remember when Travis bought that vintage Harley right before your wedding? He sold it 3 months later. Said it wasn't practical." "No, Evie. He crashed it. Totally wrecked. But instead of telling you, he took out a personal loan to replace it before you found out." Sam's words hit me like a punch to the gut. I helped him with the paperwork. He swore it was a one-time thing, that he'd learned his lesson. The room seemed to tilt slightly. "Why didn't you tell me?" He was about to become my brother-in-law. He seemed genuinely sorry, and the amount was manageable. Sam's face softened. "I should have told you. I'm sorry." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Travis's mother, "Maggie, dinner tonight? Haven't seen you both in ages. 7 p.m.? I showed Sam the message. He shook his head. "You should go. Keep things normal while we figure this out. I'll make some calls, see what kind of legal exposure you're facing." That evening, I arrived at Maggie's colonial-style house alone, having told Travis to meet me there after his shoot. The familiar scent of her lasagna filled the air as she pulled me into a warm hug. "Where's my boy?" she asked, leading me into the kitchen. "Running late. Client meeting." The lie felt bitter on my tongue. "Oh, he's been so busy lately. Did he show you the beautiful watch he bought last week?" Said it was a gift for a friend who helped him land that big corporate contract. My hand froze on the wine glass I was reaching for. "A watch? Aha. Must have cost a fortune. You know how Travis is, always going overboard with gifts. Remember that gorgeous painting he bought me last month? The artist was such a lovely young thing. What was her name? Lila something?" The room suddenly felt too warm. "I don't think Travis mentioned her." "Oh, you should see her work. She has this little gallery downtown. Travis has been helping her with photography for her upcoming show. Such a generous boy, just like his father." The front door opened, and Travis's voice called out, "Something smells amazing." He appeared in the kitchen doorway, and for a moment, I saw him through new eyes. His carefully tousled hair, the expensive camera bag slung over his shoulder, the easy smile that had made me fall in love with him. All of it felt like a carefully constructed facade. "Sorry I'm late," he said, kissing his mother's cheek before moving to do the same to me. I turned my head slightly, making his lips land on my jaw instead of my mouth. If he noticed, he didn't show it. "Travis, honey," Maggie said, "I was just telling Evie about that beautiful watch you bought." "The one for your friend?" I watched his face carefully, noting the slight tightening around his eyes. The way his hand paused for a fraction of a second as he reached for the wine bottle. "Oh, right," he said smoothly. "Just a thank you gift for a client referral." 3 lies in one evening, and dinner hadn't even started yet. I took a long sip of wine, wondering how many more revelations were waiting to shatter what remained of my marriage. The business card felt heavy in my hand. Davidson Investigations, discretion guaranteed. Sam had slipped it to me after that disastrous dinner at Maggie's, along with a stern warning about keeping everything legal. 3 days later, I sat across from Mike Davidson in his downtown office, watching him scroll through the photos on his tablet. "Your husband's been busy," he said, turning the screen toward me. "These are from the past week." The first image showed Travis entering what looked like a rundown sports bar. The timestamp read 2:14 p.m., right when he'd told me he was meeting with clients. The next showed him leaving 3 hours later, looking considerably more disheveled. But it was the third photo that made my stomach lurch. Travis was standing outside an art gallery, his hand on the small of a woman's back. She was laughing, her head thrown back, dark curls cascading down her shoulders. Even from the grainy surveillance photo, I could tell she was beautiful. "That's Lila Bennett," Davidson said, his voice matter-of-fact. "She owns the gallery. Your husband's been there 6 times in the past 2 weeks, usually staying for several hours." My throat felt tight. "The watch?" Davidson nodded, swiping to another photo. Travis and Lila outside a high-end jewelry store, his arm around her waist. The timestamp matched the day of the $47,000 withdrawal. "There's more," Davidson said, hesitating. "The sports bar? It's a known front for illegal gambling. Your husband's got himself mixed up with some dangerous people. A man named Victor Ramirez runs the operation." Victor. The name from the emails. "How much does he owe?" Davidson pulled out a manila envelope. "Based on our surveillance and some conversations with inside sources, we estimate around $200,000. The $86,000 collection notice you found? That's just the tip of the iceberg." The room started spinning. $200,000. Our entire savings, gone. Our future, evaporated. "Mrs. Mitchell." "Parker," I corrected automatically. I'd kept my name after marriage, something that had always bothered Travis's mother. "Mrs. Parker, there's something else you should know." Davidson's expression softened slightly. "The gallery? It's not doing well. According to public records, it's 3 months behind on rent. But last week, someone paid all the back rent in cash." My laugh came out hollow. "Let me guess. Right after the withdrawal?" Davidson nodded. "Your husband's playing a dangerous game. These people don't mess around when it comes to collecting debts." That night, I waited up for Travis. He came home around midnight, smelling of expensive cologne that wasn't his usual brand. When he kissed my cheek, I had to force myself not to flinch. "How was your day?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "Good. Productive. Got that corporate campaign wrapped up finally." He loosened his tie, heading for the shower. "The one you needed the equipment for?" He paused. "Yeah, that one." "Funny," I said, following him into the bathroom. "Because I called your regular clients today. None of them have hired you for any corporate work recently." Travis froze, his hand on the shower door. "You did what?" "Where's the equipment, Travis?" "The stuff you spent our savings on?" "You're checking up on me now?" His voice took on an edge I'd never heard before. "Going behind my back? Like you went behind mine with Lila?" The color drained from his face. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the drip of the faucet, marking time like a metronome. "It's not what you think," he finally said. "Really?" "Because I think you're gambling away our future while buying expensive gifts for another woman." My voice cracked. "I think you're lying to me, to your mother, to everyone." "Evie, please." My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number: "Tell your husband he has 48 hours to pay what he owes, or things get uncomfortable." V. I held up the phone, watching Travis's face crumple as he read the message. Who's Victor, Travis? And what exactly happens when things get uncomfortable? Travis's confession came in pieces, each one more devastating than the last. We sat in our kitchen as dawn crept through the windows, the threat from Victor hanging between us like a blade. I can fix this, Travis kept saying, his hands shaking as he poured his third cup of coffee. I just need a little more time. Time for what? To lose more money? To buy more watches for Lila? His head snapped up. Leave her out of this. She has nothing to do with. With what? The gambling? The lies? Or just the part where you're destroying our life? The silence that followed felt like glass about to shatter. I pulled out Davidson's photos, spreading them across the kitchen table like a twisted timeline of betrayal. $200,000, Travis. Where did you think this would end? He stared at the photos, his face ashen. I was winning at first. Big wins. The kind of money that could set us up for life. Then Victor offered to stake me for bigger games, and... He trailed off, running his hands through his hair. I just needed one more good hand. One more chance to make it right. And Lila? Was she just another bet? She's a friend. That's all. But he wouldn't meet my eyes. The gallery was going under. I couldn't let that happen. So you used our savings? Money we worked for, planned for? I used my inheritance from Dad. His voice was barely a whisper. The room tilted sideways. What inheritance? The life insurance money. It came through last month. I never told you because... He swallowed hard. Because I'd already lost most of it by then. I grabbed the edge of the table, steadying myself. The insurance money was supposed to be substantial, enough to start the photography studio Travis had always dreamed about. The future we'd planned together. How much was it? $300,000. My laugh came out like broken glass. So you're telling me you've lost $500,000? Our savings, the insurance, and now you owe money to criminals? Travis reached for my hand. I pulled away, my wedding ring catching the morning light. The same ring he'd insisted on upgrading last year, claiming his business was doing well enough to afford it. Was that bought with gambling money too? His silence was answer enough. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Victor, time's running out. Meeting at the usual place. 3 p.m. Bring the money or bring a lawyer. I'll talk to him, Travis said, reading over my shoulder. Maybe I can negotiate. No. I stood up, my decision crystallizing. You're done negotiating. Done gambling. Done lying. What are you going to do? I grabbed my car keys. I'm going to meet Lila. Evie, don't. You lost the right to tell me what to do when you bet our future on a poker game. The drive to Lila's gallery took 20 minutes. Each mile brought a new question, a new doubt. Had they laughed about me together? Had he told her about our fights, our dreams, our struggles? The gallery was small but elegant, tucked between a coffee shop and a vintage bookstore. Through the window, I could see her arranging photographs on a white wall. Travis's photographs. My husband's art, displayed like love letters for everyone to see. The bell chimed as I pushed open the door. Lila turned, her smile warm and professional. Welcome to Bennett Gallery. How can I? I'm Evie Parker. I watched recognition flash across her face. Or as you might know me, Travis Mitchell's wife. She dropped the photograph she was holding. It hit the floor with a crack, the glass splintering across the polished concrete. In that broken reflection, I saw both our faces, two women caught in the same man's web of lies. His wife? Her voice trembled. But he said he was divorced. That his ex-wife. Let me guess. That his ex-wife took everything in the settlement? That he's still paying off her debts? Lila sank into a nearby chair, her face draining of color. Oh God. The money he gave me for the gallery was stolen, I finished. Just like everything else. Lila and I sat in her back office, 2 cups of untouched coffee growing cold between us. Her gallery walls were covered in Travis's photographs, moments he'd captured while lying to us both. I recognized some of them from the days he'd claimed to be at client meetings. He said the money was from his photography business, Lila whispered, staring at her trembling hands. That he wanted to invest in emerging artists. My phone buzzed again. 2 hours until Victor's deadline. Did he ever mention gambling? I asked. She shook her head, then stopped. Wait. There was this one night. He was acting strange, kept checking his phone. Said he needed to meet someone about an investment opportunity. When he came back. She swallowed hard. His knuckles were bruised. The gallery door chimed. We both turned to see Travis stumbling in, his face pale and sweating. Evie, please, you can't be here, he froze when he saw Lila. I can explain everything. Like you explained being divorced? Lila stood up, her artist's hands clenched into fists. Or how you explained the gallery money. I was going to pay it back. All of it. Victor just needs. Victor? Lila's voice cracked. The same Victor who sent those men here last week? I felt the blood drain from my face. What men? They came looking for Travis. Said something about collateral. She hugged herself, shrinking into herself. They took some of the artwork. Said it was insurance. Travis stepped forward. Lila, I'm so sorry. I never meant. The sharp crack of her palm against his cheek echoed through the gallery. Get out. Both of you. I'm calling the police. You can't, Travis pleaded. Victor will. Will what? I demanded. Hurt us. Like he hurt you that night? Before Travis could answer, the gallery door chimed again. 2 men in expensive suits entered, their presence filling the small space like smoke before a fire. Time's up, Mitchell, the taller one said. Victor's waiting. Travis's face went from pale to gray. I just need 1 more day. No more days. The man's eyes swept over the gallery, lingering on Lila's frightened face before settling on me. Though maybe we can work something out. Victor's always had an eye for alternative payment methods. I felt something snap inside me, not like breaking, but like a lock clicking open. All the fear and hurt of the past weeks crystallized into something harder, colder. Actually, I said, pulling out my phone, I'd like to speak to Victor myself. Evie, don't, Travis started. Shut up. My voice was ice. You've done enough talking. I turned to the men. Tell Victor the first have a proposition. One that involves Travis's inheritance money. The shorter man raised an eyebrow. The insurance payout's gone, lady. Your husband blew through it weeks ago. No, I smiled, pulling up the email from Sam I'd received that morning. He only got half of it. The other half was meant to go to his mother, but there was a clerical error. The insurance company just released the funds this morning. I have access to the account details. Travis's eyes widened. How did you? While you were busy destroying our lives, I was actually trying to save them. I turned back to Victor's men. Tell him I want to meet. Just me. And tell him to bring proof of Travis's debts. All of them. The taller man made a call, speaking quietly into his phone. After a moment, he nodded. Victor will see you. Now. As we headed for the door, Lila called out, Evie? What are you going to do? I looked at Travis, seeing him clearly for the first time, not as the man I'd married, but as the stranger he'd become. I'm going to make sure everyone gets exactly what they deserve. The men led me to a waiting car, leaving Travis standing in the gallery doorway. His reflection fractured across the broken photograph still lying on the floor. In that moment, I realized revenge wasn't about hurting someone who hurt you. Sometimes, it was about making sure justice came in exactly the right form at exactly the right time. And I knew exactly what form Travis's justice needed to take. Victor's office was nothing like I'd imagined. No dark warehouse or smoky backroom, just a pristine suite in a downtown high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He sat behind a glass desk, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. Mrs. Parker, he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. I appreciate punctuality in business matters. I placed Sam's legal documents on the desk. Let's talk about Travis's debt. Victor smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Your husband owes me $200,000. The terms were clear. Show me. He slid a leather folder across the desk. Inside were promissory notes, each signed in Travis's familiar scrawl. The dates aligned perfectly with our missing savings, the withdrawn inheritance, the gallery payments to Lila. And the interest? I asked. Compounds daily. Currently at 40%. My hands clenched in my lap. That's illegal. So is gambling in my establishment. Yet here we are. Victor leaned forward. I understand you have access to the remaining insurance money? I do. But I have conditions. His eyebrow raised slightly. You're not in a position to negotiate, Mrs. Parker. Actually, I am. I pulled out my phone, showing him the email from Sam. This money legally belongs to Maggie Mitchell. One call from me, and she'll know everything, the gambling, the debt, the threats. How do you think it'll look when a grieving widow goes to the police about loan sharks threatening her son? Victor's smile vanished. You're playing a dangerous game. No, I'm ending one. I met his gaze steadily. Here's my offer, I'll transfer the insurance money, all $150,000. In exchange, you'll sign a document stating Travis's debt is paid in full. And you'll never contact him again. That's less than what he owes. It's more than you'll get if I walk out that door. The silence stretched between us like a wire about to snap. Finally, Victor nodded to one of his men, who produced a document. Sign here, Victor said. The money first, then I sign. My hand shook as I made the transfer. When it was done, Victor signed the release with a flourish. A pleasure doing business, he said. Though I'm curious, why save him? After everything he's done? I'm not saving him, I replied, standing. I'm making sure he faces the right consequences. Outside, Travis was waiting by the car, pacing nervously. Evie? What happened? Are we okay? I handed him the signed release. The debt's paid. You're free. His shoulders sagged with relief. Thank God. Baby, I promise I'll make this up to you. We can start fresh. No, Travis. We can't. He froze. What do you mean? I mean, I just used your mother's inheritance to save your life. Money that was meant to support her after losing your father. I stepped back as he reached for me. The gallery's pressing charges for fraud. Lila's lawyer will be contacting you about the stolen funds. And I've already filed for divorce. Evie, please. You have two choices, I cut him off. Either you check into rehab today, right now, or I call your mother and tell her everything. How you gambled away her husband's insurance money. How you stole from a grieving artist. How you nearly got us both killed. Travis's face crumpled. I need help, he whispered. I know. I pulled out one last piece of paper, the admission form for a treatment center. That's why I already made the arrangements. Will you? He swallowed hard. Will you wait for me? I thought about all the nights I'd waited for him, not knowing he was gambling away our future. About Lila, waiting in her gallery for a man who'd never really existed. About Maggie, still waiting for her son to become the man his father had been. No, I said softly. But maybe someday, you'll be someone worth waiting for. I watched as Victor's men escorted Travis to another car, heading for the treatment center. My phone buzzed with a text from Sam, papers filed. You okay? I looked at our reflection in the building's mirrored surface, Travis disappearing into the car, me standing alone in the afternoon sun. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to peace. No, I texted back. But I will be. 3 weeks after Travis entered rehab, Maggie showed up at my apartment unannounced. She stood in my doorway, clutching her handbag like a shield, looking older than I'd ever seen her. Were you ever going to tell me? Her voice trembled. About what Travis did with Robert's money. I stepped aside to let her in. How did you find out? The insurance company called about some paperwork. She sank onto my couch. I started asking questions. Then I spoke to Lila. Her eyes met mine. That poor girl. How could he? The kettle whistled in the kitchen, giving me a moment to collect myself. When I returned with 2 cups of tea, Maggie had pulled out a stack of letters. He's been writing to me from the facility, she said. Trying to explain. But I need to hear it from you, Evie. All of it. So I told her everything, the gambling, the lies, the debt to Victor. With each revelation, her hands gripped the letters tighter, knuckles white against the paper. I should have seen it, she whispered. The signs were all there, just like with his father. I nearly dropped my cup. What? Why do you think Robert had such a large life insurance policy? Her laugh was bitter. He got it after his first stint in rehab, 20 years ago. Said it was to protect us if he relapsed. The pieces clicked into place, Travis's secrecy, his father's sudden heart attack last year. The way Maggie had insisted on handling all the funeral arrangements alone. Did Travis know? About his father? No. Robert made me promise never to tell him. He was afraid Travis would. She closed her eyes. Would follow the same path. My phone buzzed, a text from the rehab facility, Travis Mitchell requesting immediate family visit. Urgent. Maggie saw the message over my shoulder. We should go together. The facility was an hour outside the city. During the drive, Maggie told me more about Robert, his struggles, his recoveries. His final relapse that led to that fatal night at a casino in Vegas. By the time we arrived, I felt the weight of 2 generations of addiction pressing down on us. Travis was waiting in the visitor's room, wearing facility-issued sweats that made him look somehow younger and older at the same time. When he saw Maggie, his face crumpled. Mom? What are you doing here? She stepped forward. Learning that my son is more like his father than I ever wanted him to be. Travis went pale. What do you mean? The gambling, Travis. The lies. Your father. She took a shaky breath. Your father died chasing one last win. Just like you almost did. He collapsed into a chair, hands shaking. Dad was. Like me? No, Maggie's voice hardened. You're like him. And I won't watch another Mitchell man destroy himself and everyone around him. I'm getting help, Travis protested. I'm trying to change. Are you? I cut in. Or are you just trying to win me back? Like another game you think you can play? Evie, please. Mom. He looked between us desperately. I know I messed up. But I'm doing the work. I'm facing everything I've done. Then face this, Maggie pulled out one last letter, not from the stack Travis had sent, but an older one, yellowed with age. Your father wrote this before he died. I think it's time you read it. Travis took the letter with trembling hands. As he read, tears began rolling down his face. When he finished, he looked up at his mother with new understanding. He was trying to win back what he lost, Travis whispered. Just like I was. The difference is, Maggie said softly, you still have a chance to choose a different ending. I watched them embrace, mother and son united in grief and hope. In that moment, I realized that sometimes the greatest act of revenge isn't about making someone suffer, it's about forcing them to face the truth. No matter how painful that truth might be. As I turned to leave, Travis called out, Evie, wait. There's something else you need to know. 6 months after Travis entered rehab, I sat in Lila's gallery, surrounded by her new exhibition. The walls were covered with photographs, not Travis's this time, but her own. Images of broken things made beautiful, shattered mirrors, cracked pottery filled with gold, weathered buildings reclaimed by nature. It's called restoration, Lila said, handing me a glass of wine. Sometimes things have to break completely before they can be rebuilt. I studied a particularly striking image of a wedding ring half buried in sand. Is that the one Travis gave me? Yes. She smiled without bitterness. I almost threw it into the ocean, but then I thought, why waste good art material? The gallery door chimed. Maggie entered, followed by Travis. He looked different, thinner, but somehow more substantial. Real. His eyes met mine briefly before focusing on the photographs. These are incredible, Lila, he said softly. Thank you. She straightened her shoulders. The proceeds are going to a gambling addiction support center. Seemed fitting. Travis nodded, then pulled an envelope from his jacket. I've been working with my counselor on making amends. This is the first installment to repay what I took from the gallery. Lila took the envelope without opening it. Keep it. Fund someone else's recovery instead. I don't deserve your forgiveness. No, she agreed. But you have it anyway. That's how healing works. As Lila led Maggie through the exhibition, Travis turned to me. I found a job. Teaching photography at the community center. It's not much, but it's honest work. I heard, I said. Sam told me you're also volunteering at the addiction hotline. 3 nights a week. He hesitated. I got my 90-day chip yesterday. Congratulations. An uncomfortable silence stretched between us. Finally, Travis pulled out another envelope, this one worn, like it had been carried for weeks. I wrote this during my 4th week in rehab, he said. After I read my dad's letter. I've rewritten it dozens of times, but... well, you should just read it. I opened the envelope slowly, aware of his eyes on me as I unfolded the pages. Dear Evie, it began. I used to think rock bottom was losing all our money, or facing Victor, or watching you walk away. But real rock bottom was realizing that I'd become my father's son in all the wrong ways. While ignoring the one lesson he tried to teach me through his death, that love isn't about winning or losing, it's about choosing, every day, to be worthy of it. The letter continued, detailing his struggles, his shame, his gradual understanding of the damage he'd caused. But it was the final paragraph that made my hands shake. I'm not asking you to take me back. I'm not even asking for forgiveness. I'm writing to tell you that you were right about everything. Your revenge wasn't making me pay the money back or forcing me into rehab. Your revenge was making me face myself, completely and honestly, for the first time in my life. And for that, I will always be grateful. I folded the letter carefully, aware of the weight of everything unsaid between us. The divorce papers are final next week, I said quietly. I know. Travis smiled sadly. You know what's strange? For the first time in my life, I'm not trying to win anything back. I'm just trying to be better. Across the gallery, Lila was showing Maggie a photograph of a broken clock, its gears scattered but glinting with possibility. The late afternoon sun caught the image, casting fractured light across the floor between Travis and me. Maybe that's the real difference between you and your father, I said. You're learning to live with the pieces, instead of trying to gamble them back together. Travis nodded, understanding in his eyes. As I turned to leave, he called out one last time. Evie? Thank you. For making me fold when you did. I paused at the door, looking back at the exhibition title, Restoration. Sometimes, I said, losing everything is the only way to find out what's worth keeping. Outside, the city was painted in sunset colors, broken and beautiful and full of possibilities. I walked toward it, leaving the gallery and Travis behind, knowing that some things need to stay broken to remind us why we choose to heal.